He went to the farm to escape the pain, but there he found a mother and baby hiding. Michael Anderson could no longer bear that city. Every corner, every street, every sound brought back memories that tore through his chest like glass. The pain was so great that breathing seemed an impossible effort, and sleeping had become just a torture where dreams took him back to moments that no longer existed. It was then that he heard the muffled crying coming from the back room. His heart raced in a way it hadn't for months. That sound shouldn't be there in that empty house he had chosen precisely for its silence. With slow steps, still not believing what he was hearing, he walked down the narrow hallway. The door was slightly ajar, and there, leaning against the peeling wall, was a young woman who couldn't have been more than 25 years old, holding a tiny child against her chest, who was crying softly. "Please don't call anyone," were her first words, coming out hurriedly, almost breathless. "I have nowhere else to go." Michael stood frozen in the doorway, not knowing how to react. That scene made so little sense that for a moment he wondered if he wasn't dreaming. But the smell of baby powder in the air, the sound of the old wood creaking under his feet, everything was too real to be imagination. "How did you get in here?" he managed to ask, his voice coming out harsher than he intended. "The back door was open. I was looking for a place, just for a few days, I swear. I'll leave as soon as I can." The young woman spoke quickly, her eyes wide with fear. The baby kept crying, a high-pitched sound that pierced his ears and, worse still, pierced something much deeper inside Michael. He felt his legs weaken and leaned against the doorframe. "How many days have you been here?" he asked, trying to keep his voice steady. "3. I kept everything clean, I swear. I kept everything. I didn't touch anything that wasn't necessary. I even washed some clothes that were in the closet because the babies were dirty and—" "Stop," Michael interrupted, running his hand over his face. "Just stop talking for a second." The silence that followed was broken only by the child's crying. The young woman was rocking the small body, but the little one seemed inconsolable. Michael knew that desperation, knew all too well the feeling of not being able to calm a crying baby. "Is he hungry?" he asked without even thinking. The young woman corrected softly. "And I don't know. She ate a little over an hour ago. I think it's colic." Michael stepped away from the door and went to the kitchen. His hands were shaking as he heated water. He didn't know exactly what he was doing, but some distant memory guided him. He came back with a warm towel and handed it to the young woman. "Put it on her belly. It helps with colic." The young woman took the towel carefully, as if afraid it was a trap. She placed the towel over the baby's little belly, and gradually the crying subsided until it turned into spaced-out sobs. "Thank you," she whispered. Michael didn't respond. He turned his back and left the room, closing the door behind him. He sat on the front porch where the suitcase he had brought was still lying around and rested his head in his hands. This couldn't be happening. He had come to that forgotten farm precisely to be alone, to not have to deal with anything or anyone else. And now there was a stranger with a baby inside his grandparents' house. The sun was beginning to set, tinting the sky orange and pink. It was beautiful, he had to admit, but the beauty of things seemed to no longer reach him, as if there were a thick glass between him and the rest of the world. He sat there until night had completely fallen, listening to the crickets and from time to time a murmur coming from inside the house. When he finally went in, the young woman was sitting in the kitchen, the baby sleeping in her arms. She looked up, startled by the sound of his footsteps. "I'm leaving early tomorrow," she said before he could say anything. "I promise." "Where to?" Michael asked, leaning against the sink. I'll figure something out. There's a town about 40 kilometers from here. I saw it on the map. I can try there." "With a baby? Walking?" She lowered her eyes, biting her lower lip. "If I have to." Michael sighed deeply. He knew he should send that girl away, that it wasn't his problem, that he had his own wounds to tend to, but there was something about the scene that kept him from being that harsh. Maybe it was the way she held the baby, with a mix of fear and fierce protection. Or maybe it was just the exhaustion of carrying so much anger alone. "Well, you can stay for a few days," he said, surprising himself, "but don't cause any trouble, and you'll explain properly what you're doing here." The girl's eyes filled with tears. Thank you. Thank you so much. What's your name? Jessica. And the baby is Olivia. Michael, he replied without extending his hand. That back room is yours. I'm in the front one. And tomorrow you'll tell me everything. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. Michael barely slept that night. Every time he closed his eyes, he heard the baby's cry echoing through the old house's hallways, even when there was no cry at all. It was as if his mind had created the sound, a private torture that kept him awake until the early hours. When he finally fell asleep, it was already dawn, and he woke up with the sun shining brightly on his face. He got up with his body aching. The old bed didn't have the same comfort as the one at home, but that was the least of his worries. He put on a pair of jeans and a yellow shirt he found in his suitcase and went to the kitchen. Jessica was already there, trying to calm Olivia, who was crying softly. "Good morning," she said, her voice tired. "Sorry if she woke you." "She didn't," Michael lied, opening the cabinets in search of coffee. He found an old package, probably left by his grandparents before they left, but it was still good. "Coffee? Please." They drank coffee in silence, only the sound of spoons in cups and Olivia's occasional murmurs breaking the quiet. Michael watched Jessica out of the corner of his eye. She was young, with light brown hair that fell disheveled over her shoulders, and deep dark circles marked her delicate face. She wore a simple, somewhat faded dress that had probably seen better days. "You said you'd explain." Michael broke the silence, pushing the empty cup aside. Jessica took a deep breath, adjusting Olivia on her lap. "I ran away from Dallas a week ago. I took a bus with no set destination and got off in a town called Clearwater. From there I hitched a ride here. When I saw this house, it seemed abandoned. I thought no one would notice if I stayed just a few days." "Why did you run away?" She hesitated, her fingers gripping the edge of her dress. "Olivia's father. He's not an easy person. At first I thought it was just normal jealousy, you know, but it kept getting worse. He controlled everything, who I talked to, where I went, what clothes I wore. When I found out I was pregnant, I thought it would get better. But it got much worse." "Did he hit you?" Michael asked, his voice hardening. "No, not like that. But there were other ways to hurt. He said I was crazy, that I didn't know how to take care of myself, that after Olivia was born, I'd need professional help because I couldn't handle being a mother. And he started convincing my family of that too." Michael got up and went to the window. Outside, the farm's land stretched out in low brush and tall grass. On the horizon, a few trees marked where there used to be pasture. "Did your family believe him?" "My mother passed away when I was a child. My father remarried and his wife never really liked me. So when Brandon, Olivia's father, started saying I had problems, she was the first to agree. My dad always believed her more than me. And you ran away." "I ran when I found out they were planning to commit me. I overheard a conversation between Brandon and my stepmother. They were going to claim I had postpartum psychosis, that it was dangerous to leave Olivia with me. I was going to lose my daughter." Her voice faltered at the end, and Michael heard a muffled sob. He kept looking out the window, his hands shoved in his pockets. The whole story sounded like something from a bad movie, but the pain in Jessica's voice was too real to be made up. "Do you have any money?" he asked. "I still have about $200. I took everything I could before I left." "That won't last long." "I know, that's why I need to find a job quickly. Anything will do. Washing clothes, cleaning houses, working in some shop, I can handle it." Michael turned to her. "With a baby in your arms? Who's going to hire you like that?" "I'll figure it out," Jessica replied, lifting her chin in a gesture of stubbornness that contrasted with the desperation in her eyes. "Stay here for now." Michael heard the words coming out of his mouth before he could think properly. "This house needs cleaning, organizing. You do that and I'll let you stay. No charge." "Really?" "Really. But no trouble. If that man comes after you, You tell me first. I don't want problems. He doesn't know I'm here. I was careful. I hope so. In the following days, a strange routine settled in. Michael woke up early and spent hours walking around the property, inspecting what remained of the old fences, looking at the empty corrals, imagining how it all must have been when his grandparents still ran the place. Jessica cleaned the house, took care of Olivia, and prepared simple meals with what Michael brought from town on the rare occasions he went to stock up. They talked little. Michael had no patience for conversation, and Jessica seemed to respect his silence. But there were moments when their paths crossed and small dialogues happened. "Do you have family?" Jessica asked one afternoon while hanging clothes on the makeshift clothesline Michael had set up. "I have a mother," he replied, fixing a loose board on the porch. "My father passed away 5 years ago." "Does she know you're here?" "She knows. She was the one who suggested I come. Said it would do me good to be away for a while." "Away from what?" Michael stopped what he was doing and looked at her. Jessica realized she had crossed some boundary and quickly lowered her eyes. "Sorry, it's none of my business." "I lost my wife," Michael said, surprising himself for the second time. "She was pregnant. There were complications, neither of them made it." Jessica put her hand to her mouth, her eyes filling with tears. "I'm so sorry." "It was 4 months ago," he continued, returning to work on the board. "I came here because I couldn't stay in that house anymore. Everything reminded me of her. Everything reminded me of what we were going to have and won't have anymore." "What was her name?" "Emily." "That's a beautiful name." She was a beautiful person. The silence returned, but this time it was different. There was a shared weight in it, a mutual understanding that they both carried pains that didn't heal with time. You just learned to carry them. That night, Michael woke to Olivia's crying. Normally he tried to ignore it, stuffing the pillow over his head, but this time the crying seemed different, more desperate, more high-pitched. He got up and went to Jessica's room. He knocked on the door. "Jessica? Is everything okay?" There was no answer, but the crying continued. He opened the door slowly and found Jessica sitting on the bed, holding Olivia, who was red from crying so much. "She has a fever," Jessica said, her voice trembling. "She's very hot and won't stop crying. I don't know what to do." Michael approached and touched the baby's forehead. It was really hot. "I'll get the car. We need to go to town." "But it's more than half an hour from here." "I know, but we have to go. Put something on and come." 15 minutes later, they were on the road. Michael drove fast, but carefully. In the back seat, Jessica was rocking Olivia, humming softly a lullaby that seemed more to calm herself than the baby. "Everything will be fine," Michael said, more to himself than to her. They arrived in town after 2 in the morning. The emergency room of the small hospital was almost empty. A tired nurse attended them, took Olivia's temperature, and called the on-duty doctor. After the examination, they diagnosed a common throat infection in babies, prescribed antibiotics and fever reducer, and sent them home. "It was just a scare," the doctor said, smiling tiredly. "But you did the right thing by bringing her. With small babies, it's always better not to take risks." On the way back, Olivia was already sleeping peacefully in Jessica's arms. The fever had gone down with the medicine given at the hospital. "Thank you," Jessica said softly, "for coming, for helping." "No need to thank me." "Yes, there is. You had no obligation. I'm a stranger who broke into your house." "You didn't break in. The door was open," Michael corrected, keeping his eyes on the road. "And about obligation. I know how desperate it is when a baby gets sick. Emily and I went through that once when we took care of her sister's son for a weekend. The boy had a high fever, and we went crazy. So I know." Jessica said nothing more, but Michael felt the weight of her gaze on him. It wasn't pity, it was something different. Recognition, perhaps, as if she had seen for the first time that he too was a broken person trying to stay on his feet. When they got back to the farm, the sun was beginning to rise. Jessica put Olivia in the makeshift crib they had made with a drawer lined with blankets and went to the kitchen. Michael was there, making coffee. "Aren't you going to sleep?" she asked. "I can't anymore. You?" Me neither. They drank coffee together as daylight filled the old kitchen. Chickens began to cluck outside, a sound Michael hadn't heard in years, but that brought a strange feeling of normality. "There were chickens here when I was a child," he commented. "My grandmother took care of them. She said free-range chicken eggs were the best in the world. Did you come here a lot?" "Every summer. My grandfather taught me to fish in the pond. We spent hours there, just the two of us, not saying a word. He wasn't much of a talker, but he was a good man. When he passed away, my grandmother couldn't bear to stay here alone. She sold almost everything and went to live with us in the city. She died 2 years later. And the farm has been empty ever since?" "Yes. My mother had no interest in running it, and I had my life in New York. It never seemed to make sense to come back. Until now." "Are you going to stay?" Michael took a while to respond. "I don't know. Maybe for a while. Maybe forever. I haven't decided yet." A week passed. Michael started fixing small things around the house. He replaced broken roof tiles, fixed leaky faucets, painted some walls. Jessica kept everything clean and organized, cooked simple but tasty meals, and took care of Olivia with a dedication that impressed Michael. It was on a Saturday afternoon that everything changed. Michael had gone to town to buy building supplies and some groceries. He stopped at the pharmacy to get more medicine for Olivia, since the antibiotic was running out. The pharmacist, a woman in her 60s named Mrs. Dorothy, looked at him curiously. "You're new around here, aren't you?" she asked while sorting the medicine. "Sort of. I'm Mr. Anderson's grandson from the farm on the old road." "Oh, yes. I knew your grandparents. Good people. And this medicine is for whom?" "For a baby girl." "Your daughter?" Michael hesitated. "It's complicated." Mrs. Dorothy smiled with that know-it-all look. "I understand. Well, feel free to come back any time. We always have what you need." When Michael left the pharmacy, he had the uneasy feeling that he'd created a misunderstanding. But he didn't go back to clarify. After all, what would he say? That there was a stranger living in his house with a baby? That he didn't even really know why he was helping that girl? When he got back to the farm, he noticed something different. Jessica was sitting on the porch holding Olivia, but her face was pale and tense. "What happened?" Michael asked, dropping the groceries on the floor. "He found me," she whispered, her eyes fixed on the dirt road. "Brandon. He was here about an hour ago." "What do you mean he was here? Where is he now?" "He left. But he said he'd be back. He said he has proof that I'm not mentally well and that he'll take Olivia with a court order." Michael felt anger rising in his chest. "How did he find you?" "I don't know. I swear I don't know. I haven't talked to anyone, didn't use a cell phone, didn't post anything anywhere." Michael thought about the pharmacy, about the conversation with Mrs. Dorothy. Small towns were like that. Information spread faster than wildfire. If someone mentioned he was at the farm with a baby, it wouldn't be hard for someone investigating to make the connection. "Did he threaten you?" "He said I'm irresponsible. That I ran off with his daughter without thinking about the consequences. That I'll end up in jail for this." "You won't end up in jail. You're Olivia's mother." "He has money, Michael. He has lawyers. He has connections. He can make it seem like I'm really crazy." "And what do you have? Do you have anything that proves he's the one in the wrong?" Jessica shook her head, defeated. "I have some old messages on the phone I left in Dallas, but I don't know if that would be enough." Michael paced back and forth on the porch, thinking. It wasn't his problem. He didn't know this girl, owed her nothing. He could just ask her to leave and let him be. It was the sensible thing to do. But when he looked at Jessica, he saw something in her eyes that made him stop. It was the same fear he saw in the mirror every morning, the fear of losing everything, of being left with no ground under his feet, of not having the strength to go on. And there was also Olivia, sleeping peacefully in her mother's arms, unaware of the whole storm. "We'll figure this out," Michael heard himself say. "But first you need to tell me everything, every detail, without leaving anything out." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. Jessica started talking, and didn't stop. She told about how she met Brandon at a college party, how he was charming and attentive at first, how gradually he showed a controlling side that she tried to ignore. She told about the isolation he imposed, cutting off her contact with friends, questioning every outing, every outfit, every word. About how when she got pregnant, he became even more possessive, saying it was to protect the baby, but it was really to keep her trapped. After Olivia was born, he started saying I wasn't well. Jessica continued, her voice choked, that I had postpartum depression, that I couldn't take care of her properly. But it wasn't true. I took good care of her, breastfed her, changed her, bathed her, did everything a mother does. But he started calling my stepmother whenever I did anything, saying I was acting strange, that I needed help. And your stepmother believed him. She always wanted me away from my father. I was the living reminder of his first wife. So when Brandon offered a reason to get me out of the way, she embraced the idea. And your father? Jessica wiped the tears streaming down her face. My father is weak. He always has been. He loves my stepmother more than he loved my mother, more than he loves me. So when she said I needed treatment, that Brandon was right, he agreed. That's when you ran away. That's when I heard them planning the commitment. They were going to take me to a private clinic in Washington, D.C., one of those that admit people based on family influence without needing much medical proof. When I got out of there, if I ever got out, custody of Olivia would already be with Brandon. Michael rubbed his face with his hands. It all seemed like a nightmare. But he knew things like that happened. He had read news stories, seen cases, people using the mental health system as a weapon, manipulating diagnoses to control others. Do you have any documents? Anything that proves you were well, that you took good care of Olivia? I have her vaccination card, all the vaccines up to date, done by me. I have photos on my old phone, but I hid it at my father's house before I ran away. Why did you hide it? Because I was afraid Brandon would see it. There were conversations with a friend where I told her about his behavior. If he saw it, he would delete everything. Can this friend testify for you? She can. Her name is Amanda. We've known each other since high school. She was the only person Brandon couldn't completely drive away from me. Michael nodded, processing everything. First thing, we need a lawyer. Someone who understands family law and can help you get a protective order against him. I don't have money for a lawyer, but I do. Jessica looked up, surprised. Michael, you don't have to do this. You've already done enough by letting us stay here. It's not about having to. It's about doing what's right. Why? Why are you helping me like this? Michael was silent for a long moment. Why indeed? He didn't know that young woman. He owed her nothing. But when he looked at Olivia, he saw the baby he never had. And when he looked at Jessica, he saw someone who was losing everything just as he had lost. And maybe, just maybe, helping her would be a way to give meaning to his own pain. Because I know what it's like to have no one, he finally answered. And no one deserves to go through that alone. The next day, Michael went into town to look for a lawyer. There weren't many options in a small town like that, but he found a modest office near the main square. The lawyer, a man in his 50s named Attorney Robert, listened to the story carefully. The case is complicated, he said, taking off his glasses to clean them. The father has rights over the child, just like the mother. If he can really prove she has psychological problems, he could get custody. But she doesn't have problems. She's a completely capable mother. Can you prove that? Michael hesitated. I've been living with her for 2 weeks. I see how she takes care of the baby. She's a good mother. You live together. Not like that. It's complicated. Attorney Robert sighed. Look, I'll be honest with you. If the father of this child has resources and really wants to pursue this, it's going to be tough, especially if her family is on his side. But it's not impossible. We need a few things. Medical reports showing she's well, witnesses who can talk about his behavior, proof that he's controlling, and most importantly, we need her to be willing to fight. She is willing. Then bring her here. I want to talk to her in person. When Michael returned to the farm, he found Jessica walking with Olivia in her arms around the property. She seemed calmer, but the fear was still there, marked in every careful movement, in every nervous glance toward the road. "I found a lawyer," Michael announced. "He wants to talk to you tomorrow. How much does he charge?" "Don't worry about that now. First, we resolve the situation, then we'll figure out the rest." "Michael, I can't let you pay for all this for me." "Yes, you can. And you will accept because you have no choice." Jessica smiled for the first time since Brandon had shown up at the farm. "You're so stubborn," says the woman who ran away from home with a baby and nowhere to go. Touché. That night, after dinner, they stayed talking on the porch. Olivia slept peacefully inside the house, and the sky was full of stars. Michael couldn't remember the last time he had stopped to look at the stars. "Emily loved astronomy," he said suddenly. "She knew the names of many constellations. She always said that when we had a child she would teach them to recognize each one." "She sounds like she was a special person." "She was. She was a pediatrician, loved children. That's why we wanted so much to have our own." "How did you meet her?" "At a mutual friend's birthday party. She was laughing at a joke someone had told, and I kept looking at her thinking I had never seen anyone so beautiful laugh like that. I went to talk to her and we spent the whole night talking. 3 months later we were living together." "How long were you married?" 6 years. They were the best years of my life." Jessica stayed quiet for a moment before asking, "Can I ask a difficult question?" "Go ahead." "Do you blame her for trying to have the baby?" Michael felt his chest tighten. That was a question he had asked himself 1,000 times in the last 4 months. "Sometimes," he admitted. "Sometimes I think if we hadn't tried she would still be here. But it's not her fault. It was a medical complication, one of those things that happen without anyone having control. The doctor said it was rare, that there was no way to predict it. But that doesn't make it easier to accept. And you? Do you blame yourself?" "Every day. I keep thinking if I could have done something different. If I had insisted she see another doctor, get more tests, I don't know. But in the end, none of that changes what happened. It must be very hard." "It is, that's why I came here. In the city, everything reminds me of her. Here, at least, there are fewer triggers, fewer memories around every corner." "And is it helping?" Michael looked at Jessica, at that woman who had appeared out of nowhere in his life, bringing along problems and a baby who cried in the middle of the night. At this whole situation he hadn't asked for and hadn't planned. "Honestly, I don't know, but at least here I have something to do besides dwelling on it, and that's something." The next morning, they went together to Attorney Roberts' office. Jessica told the whole story again, showing Olivia's vaccination card, talking about Amanda, about the messages left on the hidden phone. "Are you sure where you hid the phone?" the attorney asked. "Yes. It's inside a shoebox in the closet of my old room, under some photo albums." "And do you think your father would let someone get it?" "I don't know. Maybe Amanda can manage it. She still has the key I gave her years ago when we were closer." "Then we need that phone. Without concrete proof of his behavior, it's hard to argue. And we need a psychological report from you showing that you're doing well. I'll refer you to a psychologist here in town. She does this kind of evaluation." Jessica agreed to everything, hopeful for the first time in days. They left the office with a list of things to do and deadlines to meet. Michael watched her face, seeing a growing determination there. "We're going to make it," he said on the way back. "Are you so sure?" "No. But we're going to try with everything we have." The following days were a rush. Jessica was evaluated by the psychologist, who after 3 sessions issued a report stating that she showed no signs of mental instability or inability to care for her daughter. Amanda, Jessica's friend, managed to get into her father's house and retrieve the hidden phone. She mailed it to the ranch address that Michael provided. When the package arrived, Jessica turned on the device with trembling hands. There were dozens of messages from her to Amanda, reporting episodes of Brandon's behavior, describing how he prevented her from going out alone, how he tracked her phone, how he made sure to be present at all of Olivia's medical appointments to, as he said, ensure she was being well taken care of. "This is gold," Attorney Roberts said when he saw the messages. It's clear proof of controlling behavior. We can use this." But then Brandon showed up again. This time, he wasn't alone. He brought a lawyer and Jessica's stepmother. Michael was in town when he received her call, desperate. "They're here, saying they're going to take Olivia, that they have a temporary court order. Don't let them into the house. I'm already on my way back. Call Attorney Robert too." Michael drove like he had never driven in his life. He arrived at the ranch to find Jessica on the porch, holding Olivia tightly while 3 people stood outside. Brandon, a man in a suit who must be the lawyer, and a woman around 50 years old who watched everything with a stern expression. "Who are you?" Brandon asked when Michael got out of the car. "The property owner. And you're trespassing." "We're not trespassing. We're here to get my daughter." "Your daughter is right where she belongs, with her mother." Brandon's lawyer stepped forward. "We have a temporary court order granting temporary custody to Mr. Brandon Miller. Ms. Jessica Thompson must hand over the child immediately." "Can I see this court order?" Michael asked. The man handed over a paper. Michael read it quickly. Indeed, there was a court order, but it was full of information that didn't match up. It said that Jessica's whereabouts were unknown, that she hadn't attended hearings, that she was putting the child at risk. "This is full of lies," Michael said, returning the paper. "She wasn't notified of any hearing because she left Dallas recently. And the child isn't at risk. She's being very well taken care of." "That's none of your business," Brandon said, losing patience. "Jessica, stop making a scene and hand over Olivia." "I'm not handing her over," Jessica replied, her voice trembling but firm. "You're not taking my daughter away from me." That's when her stepmother spoke for the first time. "Jessica, you're sick. You need treatment. Brandon only wants what's best for Olivia. You know you can't take proper care of her." "I'm not sick. You made that up to get me out of the way. You ran away from home with a baby. If that's not a sign of instability, I don't know what is." Michael saw Jessica start to tremble. He saw how she held Olivia more tightly, as if someone might tear her from her arms at any moment, and he felt something break inside him, a rage he hadn't felt in months, maybe years. "You're not taking this child from here," he said, stepping between them and Jessica. "This court order was obtained with false information, and any attempt to enforce it will be contested. Her lawyer has been notified and is on his way here now." "Her lawyer?" Brandon laughed, but it was a humorless laugh. "She has a lawyer? With what money?" "With mine." "And who exactly are you to be paying for her lawyer?" "Someone who cares about what's right, unlike you." Brandon stepped forward, his face red with anger. "You know nothing. You don't know what I went through with her, how much work it was. She's unstable, always has been, and now she's found some idiot to manipulate and use as a shield." "The only unstable person here is you," Michael replied, keeping his voice calm despite the anger boiling inside. "Controlling, manipulative, liar. Everything you've done has been documented. There are messages, there are witnesses, there are reports. And when this reaches a real judge, you will lose." Brandon's lawyer intervened. "Sir, you are obstructing the execution of a court order. This could have legal consequences. Let the consequences come, but this child is not leaving here today." That's when Attorney Robert arrived, almost out of breath from running from the pickup truck to the porch. "No one is taking any child," he announced, showing papers. "I have just filed a challenge to the injunction and a request for a protective order in favor of my client, all based on a psychological report certifying full capacity and evidence of the petitioner's abusive behavior." Brandon's lawyer took the papers and read them, his brow growing increasingly dark. "This will have to be reviewed by a judge." "Exactly, and until it is reviewed, the situation remains as it is. The child stays with the mother." Brandon exploded. "This is ridiculous. She is my daughter too." "You should have thought of that before trying to commit her mother to a psychiatric facility using false diagnoses," Attorney Robert retorted. "We have all the evidence, Mr. Miller. Messages, accounts, witnesses. You may have managed to deceive some people, but you won't deceive the justice system." Jessica's stepmother looked at her with contempt. "You've always been problematic, Jessica, since you were little. I tried to help, but you never wanted it." "You never tried to help," Jessica replied, her voice firmer now. "You always wanted to drive me away from my father, and when Brandon offered a perfect excuse, you embraced it without a second thought. Your father agrees with me. My father is a coward. He always has been." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now, continuing. The argument went on for a few more minutes, but in the end there was nothing to be done. Unable to enforce the injunction with the challenge filed, Brandon's lawyer advised them to leave and wait for the court's decision. Before leaving, Brandon looked at Jessica with a mix of anger and something that seemed like genuine hurt. "You'll regret this," he said. "The only thing I regret is ever believing in you," Jessica replied. After they left, Jessica broke down. Her legs gave way, and she would have fallen if Michael hadn't caught her. Olivia started crying, frightened by the tension in the air. Attorney Robert helped them into the house. "You did well," the lawyer said. "You kept calm. You didn't give in. That's important." "And now?" Michael asked. "Now we wait for the hearing. With the evidence we have, I'm confident we'll not only maintain custody with Jessica, but also get a restraining order against him." "How long until the hearing?" "It could take a few weeks. I'll do my best to speed it up, but the system is slow." After Attorney Robert left, the house fell silent. Jessica fed Olivia and put the baby to sleep. Then she returned to the living room where Michael was sitting, staring into space. "Thank you," she said, sitting beside him. "For everything. For holding them off, for calling the lawyer, for standing by my side." "No need to thank me." "Yes, there is. No one has ever done something like this for me. No one has ever defended me like this." Michael looked at her. He saw the tears streaming down her face, the exhaustion marked in the dark circles under her eyes, but he also saw a strength there that he hadn't noticed before. Jessica wasn't just a scared young woman fleeing a bad relationship. She was a mother fighting tooth and nail for her daughter. She was someone who had lost almost everything, but refused to lose what remained. "You would have done the same for me," he said finally. "I would have. But I don't know if I would have been as strong." "You are stronger than you think." They sat there side by side as night fell outside, and for the first time since Emily had passed away, Michael didn't feel completely alone. The days that followed were tense. Michael spent more time at the ranch, afraid that Brandon would show up again. Jessica barely left Olivia's side, keeping the baby close at all times. But gradually their routine returned. Daily chores helped keep their minds occupied. It was during this period that something began to change between them. Small things, almost imperceptible. Michael started helping with Olivia, holding the baby while Jessica cooked or rested. Jessica began asking questions about Emily, and Michael discovered that talking about her didn't hurt as much as before. "Was she a good cook?" Jessica asked one afternoon as they prepared lunch together. "No, she was terrible," Michael laughed, surprised he could laugh at a memory of her. "She'd even burn boiling water, but she insisted on trying elaborate dishes. Once she tried making risotto and it got so stuck we had to throw the pan away." "Really? Really?" She got mad at me for laughing, but the next day she was laughing too. After that it was settled that I would cook and she'd wash the dishes. "Sounds like you complemented each other well." "Yes. We argued sometimes, like every couple, but deep down we were better together than apart." Jessica stayed quiet for a moment before asking, "Do you think you'll be able to love someone again someday?" The question took Michael by surprise. He'd never thought about it, not really. The idea of loving another person seemed so distant, so impossible. "I don't know," he answered honestly. "Sometimes I think not, that everything I had to give died with her." "I don't believe that." "Why?" "Because you still care. I see it in how you take care of this ranch, how you renovated the room for me and Olivia to be more comfortable, how you went after an attorney even without knowing me well. Someone who does all that still has a lot of love to give." Michael didn't know how to respond. He turned back to the stove, stirring the food without really paying attention. Jessica's words echoed in his head, stirring something he had locked away deep inside. That night, after dinner, Michael went to the room that had been his grandfather's. In the old closet, stored inside a shoebox, were old photos of the ranch. Photos of him as a child, running through the pasture. Photos of his grandparents, smiling on the porch. And one specific photo he was looking for. A photo of him with Emily, taken during their last visit to the ranch together, just a few months before she got pregnant. He looked at the photo for a long time. Emily was radiant, her hair in the wind, laughing at something he had said. And him beside her, looking at her as if she were the only person in the world. He felt the familiar pain tighten his chest, but for the first time, it wasn't paralyzing. It was a gentle pain, almost comforting, a memory that hurt but also warmed. "I haven't forgotten you," he whispered to the photo. "And I won't forget. But I need to keep living. I need to find a way to move forward." He put the photo back in the box and returned to the living room. Jessica was on the porch, rocking Olivia, who was fighting sleep. "Can I hold her for a bit?" Michael asked. Jessica looked up, surprised, but handed over the baby. Michael sat in the old rocking chair and began rocking Olivia slowly. The baby looked at him with those big, curious eyes, without fear, without suspicion, just pure curiosity. "Hi, little one," he murmured. "You're giving your mum some trouble, aren't you?" Olivia yawned, a tiny yawn that made Michael smile. "She likes you," Jessica commented, sitting on the porch step. "How do you know?" "Because she doesn't stay calm with just anyone. But with you, she does." Michael looked at the child in his arms and felt something stir in his chest. It wasn't the same feeling he had when he thought about the son he lost. It was different, but it was still love. A new kind of love, born from the most unlikely circumstances. "You're a good mother, Jessica," he said, raising his eyes to her. "Don't let anyone make you believe otherwise. Sometimes I'm afraid I'm not enough. You are more than enough. Olivia is lucky to have you." Jessica quickly wiped her eyes, trying to hide the tears. "Thank you. I needed to hear that." They stayed there for hours, talking about everything and nothing, about dreams they had, about plans that went wrong, about how life is never the way we expect. And when Olivia finally fell completely asleep, Michael took her to the crib with a care that surprised even himself. The hearing was scheduled for 3 weeks later. Attorney Robert prepared them for what to expect, explained the procedures, what to say, and what not to say. Michael offered to testify, but the lawyer thought it was better not to, so as not to complicate the situation with questions about his relationship with Jessica. "Not that there's anything wrong with it," Attorney Robert clarified, "but his lawyer might try to use it to say you're in a relationship, and that's proof of instability. It's better to keep you officially out of it." The wait was torturous. Michael tried to keep Jessica distracted with house renovations, with plans for the farm, with anything that would take her mind off the approaching hearing. But at night, he heard her crying softly in her room, trying to muffle her sobs so as not to wake Olivia. One of those nights he knocked on her door. "Jessica, can I come in?" "Yes." She was sitting on the bed, hugging her knees. Michael sat beside her, keeping a respectful distance. "Everything will be fine," he said. "And if it's not, if the judge believes him, if they take Olivia away from me, they won't take her. We have evidence, we have reports, we have witnesses. The truth is on our side. But he has money, he has influence. That counts for a lot." "It does, but not more than a mother fighting for her daughter." Jessica rested her head on Michael's shoulder, and he didn't pull away. They stayed like that for a while, in the silence of the room, lit only by the moonlight coming through the window. "Michael." "Yes? What will happen after? If everything goes well, if I get custody, the protection, all of it, what will happen to us?" It was a question Michael had been avoiding asking himself. What would happen after? Would Jessica continue living there? Would they keep sharing the house, the meals, the daily life? And what exactly were they to each other? "I don't know," he answered honestly. "But we'll figure it out together, won't we?" "Together," she repeated, as if testing the sound of the word. On the day of the hearing, they woke up early. Jessica wore the best outfit she had, a simple but pretty dress that Michael had bought for her the week before. She insisted that he didn't need to pay, but he was firm. Olivia was in a clean, sweet-smelling little outfit, her fine hair carefully combed. "You look beautiful," Michael said, and he meant more than just her appearance. "I'm nervous." "I know, but you'll do well. Just tell the truth. Show them who you really are." The hearing was in the courthouse of a larger city, about a 2-hour drive away. Michael drove while Jessica sat quietly in the passenger seat, holding Olivia and looking out the window. When they arrived, Attorney Robert was already waiting. "Ready?" he asked. "Ready," Jessica replied, her voice firmer than Michael expected. Inside the room, Brandon was already there with his lawyer. He looked at Jessica with an expression that mixed anger and something else, something Michael couldn't quite decipher. Jessica's stepmother was also present, seated behind Brandon as moral support. The judge entered, a man of about 60 with a tired but attentive appearance. He first heard Brandon's side, which painted a picture of Jessica as an unstable mother who fled with their daughter, putting the child at risk. He presented as evidence the fact that she was living on an isolated farm with a man she barely knew. Then it was Jessica's turn. With a trembling but clear voice, she told everything. The controlling relationship, the manipulation, the plan for forced institutionalization. She showed the messages, presented the psychological report, called Amanda to testify. Her friend spoke about the conversations she had with Jessica, about how she saw her situation gradually worsen, about how Brandon isolated Jessica from everyone. "And about living on that farm," Attorney Robert added, "my client found refuge in a safe place, far from those who wanted to control her. The owner, Mr. Michael Anderson, offered humanitarian aid to a mother in a vulnerable situation. There is nothing inappropriate about that." The judge asked many questions. He asked about Olivia's care, about the farm's conditions, about Jessica's plans for the future. She answered everything honestly, showing that she had thought through every detail, that she wasn't acting on impulse, but out of a need for protection. When she finished, the judge withdrew to deliberate. The wait was agonizing. Michael, who was seated at the back of the room, saw Jessica interlace her fingers so tightly that her knuckles turned white. He saw Brandon fidget restlessly in his chair. He saw Jessica's stepmother maintain a stern expression, showing nothing. 40 minutes later, the judge returned. "After reviewing the evidence presented and hearing all involved parties," he began, "it is clear to this court that there was indeed controlling and manipulative behavior on the part of the petitioner. The messages presented, corroborated by the friend's testimony and the respondent's psychological report, show a pattern of psychological abuse that cannot be ignored." Michael saw Jessica hold her breath. "Therefore, I maintain custody of the minor Olivia with the mother, Ms. Jessica Thompson. I also issue a protective order preventing Mr. Brandon Miller from approaching the mother and child within a radius of 500 meters under penalty of arrest. Visits must be supervised and scheduled through the court until a new determination is made following psychological monitoring of the petitioner." The relief that flooded Jessica was visible. She hugged Olivia to her chest and began to cry, but they were tears of relief, of victory. Brandon stood up abruptly, protesting, but his lawyer calmed him down, saying they could appeal. Michael went to Jessica and hugged her, Olivia between them. He felt her body tremble with emotion, felt the tears wet his shirt, and he felt, for the first time in months, that things might get better, that maybe there was still hope. On the way back to the farm, Jessica couldn't stop talking. "We did it. I can't believe we did it. Olivia stays with me. She stays with me." "You did it," Michael corrected. "You fought and won." "No. We did it. I never could have done this alone." When they arrived at the farm, the sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. The old house, which weeks ago seemed just a temporary refuge from pain, now seemed different. It seemed like a home. That night they celebrated with a simple dinner. Jessica made rice and beans, some meat Michael had bought the day before, and a salad. Olivia slept peacefully in her crib, finally truly safe. "What are you going to do now?" Michael asked as they washed the dishes together. "I don't know. I think I need to find a job, save money. I can't rely on your kindness forever." "You're not relying. You're living here, helping with the house. It's a fair exchange. But it won't always be like this. One day you'll want your life back, your privacy, your space. Michael dried his hands on the dish towel and looked at her. What if I don't want to? What do you mean? What if I don't want you to leave? What if I... He hesitated, searching for the right words. What if I'm starting to like having you here? Jessica grew very quiet, her eyes fixed on him. Michael, are you sure about what you're saying? No, I'm not sure about anything. But I know that these past few days I've felt more alive than in the last 4 months. I know that when I wake up in the morning, I don't feel that crushing weight in my chest anymore. I know that when I see you with Olivia, when I hear her crying in the middle of the night when we talk on the porch, all of that makes me feel less lost. I feel that way too, Jessica admitted softly. You saved me, Michael, in a way I don't know how to thank you for. You don't need to thank me. You too saved me too. In a different way, but you did. They stood there, frozen in the kitchen, looking at each other. There was something in the air, a different tension than before. It wasn't just gratitude or friendship, it was something deeper, more complex, but neither of them was ready to name it. Let's take it slow, Michael finally said. No rush, we'll figure things out in due time. Slowly, Jessica agreed, smiling. The weeks that followed brought a new routine. Michael began renovating the farm more seriously, hiring some local workers to help with the major repairs. Jessica took over the household management completely, cooking, cleaning, organizing. Olivia grew up healthy, starting to make little noises and smile at everything. It was during this period that Michael's mother decided to show up. He had told her about Jessica and Olivia, but vaguely, without giving many details. When Mrs. Margaret arrived at the farm on a Saturday afternoon, Michael was in the barn fixing an old shelf and Jessica was in the kitchen making bread. Mom! Michael dropped his tools and went to hug her. I didn't know you were coming. I wanted to surprise you. And meet this young lady and baby you mentioned. Mrs. Margaret was 67 years old, with greying hair tied in a bun and sharp eyes that missed nothing. Michael led her to the house where Jessica, alerted by the noise, was already waiting with Olivia in her arms. Mom, this is Jessica. And Olivia. Jessica, my mother, Mrs. Margaret. It's a pleasure to meet you, ma'am, Jessica said, extending her hand. Mrs. Margaret shook her hand, but her eyes were assessing everything. The clean house, the smell of fresh bread, the well-cared-for baby in Jessica's arms, the way her son positioned himself protectively beside the two. The pleasure is mine, dear. What a beautiful baby. May I? Jessica handed Olivia to Mrs. Margaret, who took the baby with the skill of someone who has raised children and grandchildren. Olivia looked at the lady with curiosity before giving a toothless smile. She's charming, Mrs. Margaret said, and very well cared for, I see. Jessica is a great mother, Michael commented. I see that. And you, Jessica, are you adapting well here? Yes, ma'am, very well. Your son was... He was very kind to let me and Olivia stay. Kind, Mrs. Margaret repeated, looking at Michael with a half-smile. It's not a word I'd normally use to describe my son, but I'm glad he's being that way. They had afternoon coffee together. Jessica's fresh bread with homemade jam she had made from fruit Michael brought from the city. Mrs. Margaret asked questions, but not the invasive kind. She wanted to understand, not to judge. Can I speak with you in private, son? She asked after Jessica excused herself to put Olivia to sleep. They went out to the porch. Mrs. Margaret looked at the horizon for a moment before speaking. She's special. Yeah. And you're getting attached. Michael sighed. I am. I tried not to get attached, but it happened. What about Emily? The question came softly, without accusation, but it still hurt. I'll never forget Emily, Mom. She was the love of my life. But she's gone. And I'm still here. And I don't know. I don't know if it's right, but when I'm near Jessica, when I hold Olivia, I feel less empty. Mrs. Margaret took her son's hand. My love, there's nothing wrong with that. Emily wouldn't want you to be stuck in pain forever. She'd want you to live, to be happy. But it feels like I'm betraying her, like I'm forgetting. You're not forgetting, you're surviving, and there's a huge difference between the two. But what if I'm not ready? What if this is all too fast? Then you take it slow. But don't pull away out of fear, Michael. Don't waste a second chance at happiness just because the first one was taken from you so soon. Michael hugged his mother, feeling the tears come. Tears for the Emily he lost, tears for the confusion of feelings he had, tears for the uncertain future. I don't know how to do this, Mom. Nobody does, son. We learn along the way. Mrs. Margaret stayed for a few days, helping with the renovation, teaching recipes to Jessica, holding Olivia while the two worked. And it was during those days that Michael realized something important. His mother and Jessica got along very well. They talked for hours, laughed together, exchanged stories. "She's a good girl," Mrs. Margaret said the night before she left, "and she clearly loves you. Mom, we haven't even... It's not like that. Not yet, but it will be. I see it in the way she looks at you, in the way you look at her when you think no one's watching. It's complicated. Love always is, but that doesn't mean it's not worth it." After Mrs. Margaret left, the house was quiet again, but it was a different silence, less heavy. Michael and Jessica returned to their routine, but something had changed between them. Small touches that lasted longer, lingering looks, conversations that went deep into the night. It was on one of those nights that everything changed. Olivia was teething for the first time and wouldn't stop crying. Jessica walked around the house with her, trying to soothe her, but nothing worked. Michael joined her, the two walking back and forth like tired zombies. "She won't stop," Jessica said, exhausted. "I'll massage her gums. My mum said it helps." Michael took Olivia and, carefully, massaged the baby's swollen gums. Gradually, the crying subsided, until it stopped completely. Olivia looked at him with those big eyes, and then rested her little head on his shoulder, finally relaxing. "How did you do that?" Jessica asked, impressed. "Luck, I guess." They went back to Olivia's room, and Michael carefully put the baby in the crib. She sighed contentedly and closed her eyes. When they left the room, closing the door slowly, they stood in the hallway, looking at each other. "Thank you," Jessica whispered. "You don't have to." But before Michael could finish the sentence, Jessica moved closer and kissed him. It was a gentle kiss, almost shy but full of meaning. When they pulled away, both were breathless. "Sorry," Jessica said quickly. "I shouldn't have... I don't know what came over me." "No," Michael held her face in his hands. "Don't apologize." And he kissed her again, this time with more certainty, more intensity. All the months of pain, confusion, denying what he was feeling, dissolved in that kiss. When they finally separated, they rested their foreheads against each other. "I don't know what I'm doing," Michael admitted. "Me neither. But I want to find out, with you. This isn't going to be easy. I still have a lot to work through inside me. I know, and I have my own baggage. But can we try? Without rushing, at our own pace?" Michael nodded. "We can try." From that night on, everything changed, but also everything remained the same. They didn't rush. They didn't pretend there weren't still open wounds. Michael still had days when he woke up thinking about Emily, when he visited her grave in the city and spent hours talking to the memory of his wife. And Jessica had days when the fear of Brandon returning paralyzed her, when she checked the house locks 3 times before sleeping. But together they were stronger. Michael helped Jessica when fear overwhelmed her, reminding her that he was there to protect her and Olivia. Jessica helped Michael when the longing tightened, listening to his stories about Emily without jealousy, without judgment. The months passed. The farm was being renovated little by little, gaining new life. Michael bought some chickens, then some cows. He started planting a vegetable garden with Jessica's help. Olivia took her first steps, spoke her first words, filled the house with a joy that hadn't existed there for a long time. And on a Sunday afternoon, 6 months after that first night they kissed, Michael and Jessica, were on the porch watching Olivia play with the chickens in the yard. Mrs. Margaret was there. She had come to spend the weekend with them. Amanda, Jessica's friend, was also visiting. She had become a constant presence at the farm. "I never imagined my life would turn out so well," Jessica commented, resting her head on Michael's shoulder. "Me neither. When I arrived here, I thought I would spend the rest of my life alone, brooding over pain. And what changed? You, Olivia. You two showed me that it's still possible to start over, even when it seems impossible." Amanda smiled from the other side of the porch. "You two are perfect together. Who would have thought that from the worst possible situation something so beautiful would be born?" "Indeed," Mrs. Margaret agreed. "Sometimes God writes straight with crooked lines." That night, after the visitors had left and Olivia was sleeping, Michael and Jessica stayed on the porch as they always did. But this time, Michael had something to say. "Jessica, there's something I've been thinking about." "What?" "I want you and Olivia to stay here, forever. I want us to build a life together, for real. Not as a guest and host, but as a family." Jessica sat up straighter, her heart racing. "Are you saying—" "I'm asking you to marry me. I know it's still early, I know some people will think it's crazy. But I know what I feel, and I know I want to spend the rest of my life with you and Olivia. And Emily." Michael took a deep breath. "Emily will always be in my heart. She was the first woman I loved, and nothing will change that. But she's gone, and you are here. And I love you, Jessica, in a different way, but no less true." Tears were streaming down Jessica's face. "I love you too, and I accept. Yes, I'll marry you." They kissed under the stars, the same stars that Emily loved so much, the same stars that had witnessed so many stories on that farm over the years. And at that moment, Michael felt a peace he hadn't felt in a long time, as if Emily, from wherever she was smiling, happy because he had found a way to be happy again. The wedding happened 3 months later, in a simple ceremony in the countryside, only close family and friends. Mrs. Margaret cried throughout the ceremony, tears of joy at seeing her son smiling again. Amanda was the maid of honor, and Olivia, at 1.5 years, was the most beautiful little flower girl anyone had ever seen, even though she knocked over the basket of petals and ran after the chickens in the middle of the ceremony. Brandon didn't show up, but he sent a letter. In it, he apologized. He said he had started therapy, that he was recognizing his mistakes, that he wanted someday to have a chance to really get to know his daughter, without pressures, without attempts at control. Jessica put away the letter, not yet knowing if she would ever respond, but feeling that it was at least a beginning. Life at the farm settled into a peaceful rhythm. Michael managed the property, which gradually began to prosper again. Jessica started a small business making homemade sweets that she sold in town. Olivia grew up surrounded by love, space, and freedom. 2 years after the wedding, on a spring morning, Jessica discovered she was pregnant again. Michael received the news with fear at first, memories of Emily's pregnancy flooding back. But Jessica held his hands and said, "Everything will be fine. We'll get through this together." And everything was fine. 9 months later, Ethan was born, a healthy boy who cried loudly as soon as he came into the world. Michael held his son in his arms and cried too, but they were tears of joy, gratitude, and relief. "Hi, my son," he whispered. "You don't know how long I've waited for you." Jessica, tired but radiant in the hospital bed, smiled. "We're a real family now." "We always have been," Michael corrected, kissing her forehead, "since the day you showed up hiding in that old house." The years kept passing. Olivia grew up and called Michael Dad because he was the only father she had ever really known. Ethan grew up surrounded by affection and with a sister who fiercely protected him. The farm prospered, becoming a regional reference for its organic production. And Michael, who had arrived at that property, carrying only a suitcase and an unbearable weight in his chest, found more than he ever thought possible. He found a new family. He found a new purpose. He found a way to honor the love he had for Emily while building a new love with Jessica. One afternoon, many years after that first night when he heard a baby's cry changing his life forever, Michael was on the porch with greying hair, watching Olivia, now a young adult, playing with her own children in the yard. Ethan was helping Jessica in the kitchen, preparing Sunday lunch. Mrs. Margaret, now over 80 but still active, was telling stories to her grandchildren. "What are you thinking about?" Jessica asked, sitting beside him. "About how strange life is, how it takes everything from us one moment and gives us back something completely different the next." "Do you regret anything?" "No. I regret the pain I went through, of course. I regret losing Emily, but I don't regret anything that came after. You and the kid, you saved me. You saved us first. Then we're even," he joked, pulling her closer. They stayed there, watching the family they had built, listening to the children's laughter, smelling the food being prepared, living that simple but perfect moment. And Michael realized that this farm, which was supposed to be just a temporary refuge from pain, had become the place where he found everything he thought he had lost forever: love, family, hope, and a future. End of story. And you? What did you think of this story of new beginnings and overcoming? Michael and Jessica managed to transform pain into love and build a beautiful family. Tell us in the comments what you felt and which part moved you the most. Don't forget to leave your like and subscribe to the channel for more touching stories. Thank you very much for your company.